Ken Landau. Let's talk about Viagra. Viagra is a drug, as everyone knows, for erectile dysfunction or for impotence. But did you know that when it was originally developed, it was thought that it was going to be a therapy for high blood pressure and for angina or chest pain due to inadequate oxygen going to the heart? But the study showed that it didn't work for that. But the men who were on the studies developed profound erections. So the company reoriented its marketing, and the Food and Drug Administration approved Viagra in 1998. Now, you take the drug somewhere between 30 minutes and 4 hours before you're going to have sex. You take only once a day. That's the maximum dose. You can increase the 50 milligrams to 100 milligrams or decrease it to 25 milligrams if that's appropriate. If you take the drug, it's going to take at least 30 to 60 minutes to work. But if you have fatty food, let's say you take it at dinner time with a pizza, it's going to take considerably longer to work. If you take Levitra, that works much more quickly, works within 15 to 30 minutes. Cialis, if you take it intermittently, it takes about 30 to 45 minutes. But if you take it on a daily dose, it seems to work whenever you want. We know that not everyone who takes Viagra is going to be benefited. So if you're an average man, you suffer from erectile dysfunction, you take the 50 milligram Viagra, it's only going to work about 75% of the time, 3/4 of the men. It means about 25% of the men not going to be benefited. And if we double the dose to 100 milligrams, we still have 20% of the men who will not be benefited. And if you have diabetes, that number is going to increase to about 50%. Now, back in 2000, there wasn't much competition, so if you wanted to treat erectile dysfunction, you would take Viagra. On the other hand, by 2007, the market share fell to about 50% because Levitra was on the market, Cialis was on the market. There were some reports of sudden blindness that were occurring. Well, we know that if you take the drug, you have a potential for some side effects. They're relatively minor side effects for the overwhelming majority of people, maybe headache or flushing. Maybe you'll develop some indigestion. People have abnormal vision. Up to 10% will develop either blue vision or maybe blurry vision or maybe sensitivity to light, but that tends to go away relatively quickly. Nasal congestion, muscle pain, back pain, all common. If you happen to have heart disease, you've got to be careful because you can't take Viagra within 24 hours of nitroglycerin or any of the nitrates. And if you happen to have a problem with your blood pressure or a problem with an enlarged prostate and you take an alpha blocker, a drug like Cardura or Minipress or Hytrin, well, you should definitely be extremely careful because if you combine the two, you might become lightheaded or dizzy or you might develop hypotension and pass out. Certain drugs have an interaction, so you have to be careful if you take erythromycin or if you have certain of the AIDS drugs. We know the older you get, and especially if you have liver or kidney disease, you have to cut down on the dose. So maybe the 25 milligram therapy would be best for those people. You know, if you're taking heparin as a blood thinner, you've got to be careful. And certainly alcohol and Viagra don't mix, especially excessive amounts of alcohol. Everyone knows that if you have an erection that lasts for more than 4 hours, you should see a doctor. Or if you have a painful erection that lasts for more than 6 hours, something we call priapism, you should see a doctor. If you have loss of vision, well, definitely see a doctor immediately. But fortunately, that's extraordinarily rare, and we don't even know that it's really associated with Viagra. It's been reported with it, but that doesn't mean cause and effect. And subsequent to marketing of the drug, it's been found to be associated with sudden profound hearing loss. Now, even though it's not a good treatment for elevated blood pressure, we know that for an hour or 2 hours after you take it, especially if you stand up, your blood pressure is going to fall by about 10 millimeters of mercury. For somebody who's frail or somebody who's already on blood pressure therapy, that might mean that when you stand up, you develop some lightheadedness and some dizziness. So you do have to be careful. And certainly caution would suggest if you've had a heart attack or a stroke or if you have unstable angina, don't take the drug for at least 6 months. And if you happen to have life-threatening arrhythmias, definitely not for you. Well, in 2014, a report came out, and it said people who took Viagra had a doubling of their chances of developing malignant melanoma. That scared a lot of people, but probably has nothing to do with it. Probably there is no significant association, certainly no known cause and effect. Well, Viagra works on a certain chemical, and that chemical, or a relative of the chemical, is present in a lot of different organs, and that's why you can have some of the side effects. It's present in the kidney, and the pancreas, and the liver, and it's present in the lung and the vascular tissues. Well, in popular culture, it's thought that if you take Viagra, it could increase your libido. It doesn't. It's thought that it could increase your sexual performance. It doesn't. It's thought that it could increase your penis size. It doesn't. Well, a lot of the kids, a lot of the people who are taking drugs, taking the opiates, find that they suffer from erectile dysfunction. People who take ecstasy, similar sort of situation. So they combine it with Viagra in order to counteract some of the side effects. They call that sextasy, or they call it rockin' and rollin', or they call it trail mix. Viagra is an extremely commonly counterfeited drug, probably the most counterfeited drug in the entire world. In 2011, 22 different sites on the internet were evaluated that were selling Viagra. 80% of them were counterfeit, and the overwhelming majority of them didn't contain Viagra at all, or just trace amounts. And we also know that Interpol, just in 1 month, closed 10,000 sites on the computer that were selling drugs that were found to be counterfeit. A lot of those happened to be Viagra. Now, you hear talk about a female Viagra. That's a drug called Addy, and that has nothing to do with the Viagra that we're talking about. The reason everyone knows Viagra is the drug company Pfizer spends enormous amounts of money advertising it. You can't turn the television on and watch a half-hour show without seeing at least one ad for Viagra or one of the other ED medicines. Actually, the drug company Pfizer in 1 year spent over $1.5 billion just advertising its drugs. And now they're advertising even more because in July of 2015, they came out with a Viagra single pack. Well, it's important to realize that over-the-counter sales are coming. Originally, actually, the drug company, Pfizer, thought that, at least in Europe, they might sell it over-the-counter in 2008. But they had some misgivings, and so did the FDA equivalent over in Europe. Now they're thinking of bringing out a generic in 2017 here in the United States in combination with a drug company called Teva. Viagra is extraordinarily expensive. There are generic sildenafils on the market, and that's what Viagra is. It is just sildenafil. Viagra costs 50 times more than sildenafil. But it's important to realize that even though the drug was brought out, even though Viagra was brought out originally in 1998 about $10 a pill, it's now $50 a pill. Has there been that much increase in the cost for the drug? No. Actually, they made a profit in 1998 on the drug, so not exactly sure what's caused them to increase the price tenfold. But I tell you what, there is a generic on the market, and it's called Sildenafil. Now, it's only marketed for pulmonary artery hypertension, but it's still the same Sildenafil. It's sold in 20 milligram pills, and you can go over to the pharmacy with a prescription and get Sildenafil. Sildenafil is sold for considerably less than $1 a pill. Let's see, 20 milligrams of Sildenafil, you would have to take 2 or 3 of those to equal a Viagra. That would be less than $3, or Viagra $50. Just a thought. Anyway, what you should also know is just this year, Pfizer has increased the cost of Viagra by 13%. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'm Dr. Ken Landau.